Thank you, O basketball gods, for sparing us from another horrific Kings home loss and an even more depressing Locked On Kings podcast. We've all heard the cliche in sports, a win is a win, and I'm certainly not complaining after the Kings deserve to lose this game to a Spurs team without Victor Wembanyama, but I beg you, Kings, please, just one comfortable home win. If not for the sake of the standings, do it for the sake of your fan base's blood pressure. You are listening to Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the free Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter from ABC 10 News. And is anybody at all surprised that the Kings' home win over the San Antonio Spurs ended up being a bigger deal and a more dramatic game than the Kings' win last night in Los Angeles against a Laker team that at the time was biting at their heels in the Western Conference standings? Like, the Spurs are at the bottom. The Spurs are not in this playoff race at all. They're just trying to play spoiler. And yet tonight's game was a bigger deal because of the Kings versus the Kings. The Sacramento circumstance of this team, for some reason, not being able to beat shorthanded teams and hold on to leads in their own building. We saw them a handful of nights ago blow two double-digit leads to the Chicago Bulls without Zach LaVine. Greg Popovich, the genius head coach that he is, he caught on. Of course, I'm joking there. Victor Wembanyama is out with an ankle injury, I believe, but no Wemby in this game, and the Spurs had a better chance of winning tonight than they did when Wemby played here just a couple of weeks ago. Everybody exhale because thank God, the Kings managed to go on a 7-0 run and quite literally snatch a victory out of the jaws of really, like, we're talking potentially catastrophic defeat. And we'll get into that a little bit. Let's walk through what happened tonight. The Kings go up by 20 points. Nobody in this arena is feeling good about it, right? A 20-point lead for the Sacramento Kings on their home floor might as well mean nothing. And to the surprise of nobody, the Spurs ended up coming back, and come fourth quarter time, not only did they erase that 20-point lead, they took an 8-point lead of their own. The Kings are unraveling. The Spurs could not miss. They shot 16 of 34 from the three-point line, 47%. That percentage was actually above 50 for most of this game. Another example of the Kings with their league worst three-point defense percentage-wise. That rearing its ugly head again. The Spurs are raining down threes. De'Aaron Fox is going off in the fourth quarter, had 17 of his 33 points in the fourth quarter, looking like he was going to have to drag the Kings to this victory. And then Fox fouls out. Now, I'm really, really grateful that the Kings won this game, because I feel like even though Fox is the superstar and had a phenomenal fourth quarter, I feel like I would have had to been like aggressively critical of that moment from Fox. It's still not okay. It's still not, like, it was honestly a stupid foul by De'Aaron. The Kings were only down by, I think 3 points at the time. It was a very close game with around a minute remaining. De'Aaron Fox has 5 fouls. He picked up a foul earlier on in the fourth quarter, and he just reaches across his man's body, a clear reach-in foul, and fouls out of the game. I don't know if he was He remembered that he only had 5 fouls, if he was frustrated because the Kings were blowing another lead at home, or just lost focus. I don't know what the circumstance was. But when De'Aaron Fox picked up that 6th foul, everybody in this building, even with it still being close, everybody in this building thought this game's over. Mike Brown even did a Hail Mary challenge at that point in time knowing he was going to lose it, but he had it, might as well use it on the very, very slight chance that maybe De'Aaron didn't actually foul him. Of course, he did. We all saw that he did. It was an easy challenge to lose, easy decision for the referees. De'Aaron Fox fouls out of this game, right? A foolish foul that it wouldn't have been the reason why the Kings lost, but for many of us, it should have been the nail in the Kings' coffin for another bad home loss. But then the Kings, I forgot one thing too. The Spurs were turning the Kings over all night long. They scored 27 points off of the 13 Kings turnovers. Now, the Kings defense was awful tonight. I already talked about the three-point defense. They gave up 129 points to a Spurs team without Victor Wembanyama. The defense was inexcusably bad. Right? So I'm not saying that it wasn't the defense's fault, it was on the offense. But once again, you're falling apart. You can't get a stop on the defensive side. You have allowed the Spurs to pick up momentum. Offensively, you're not scoring the ball, and a lot of that momentum that the Spurs were building was because you weren't taking care of the basketball. 27 Spurs points off of 13 Kings turnovers. That is nearly catastrophic, and the Kings are lucky to have won a game with that lopsided of a points off of turnover margin. But Cardiac Kings from a couple of years ago makes a reappearance. Harrison Barnes hits a 2 after Fox is fouled out. Then Kings get a stop. Malik Monk dribbles the ball up the floor and settles for a wing 3 in transition. He knocks it down to tie the game up. Spurs have the ball. Kings still need to get a stop. And Domantas Sabonis, that man, gets a steal and a fast break dunk to put the Kings ahead. The Kings get one more stop at the end. And they beat the Spurs. Oh, thank goodness they beat the Spurs. 131-129. Yes, a win is a win. You absolutely take it. Doesn't matter how you get it done. You just had to get it done. And this is certainly not going to be a game for the Sacramento Kings to study on how to defend a lead at home. Right? Once again, they blew a big lead at home. Regardless of if it's to a full-strength Spurs team or a Spurs team without Victor Wembanyama, it can't be happening at the rate that we've seen it happen this season. Mike Brown took the podium after the game, and he said, we'll take the win, but we can't accept the way that we played. He's 100% correct. Like this, how the Kings played tonight is not good enough. Now, there are two, this is kind of a joke and kind of not. There's two positives to this identity that the Kings have and the postseason. Positive number one, if/when the Kings actually make the playoffs, they will be playing a good basketball team. And more often than not, we see the Kings play better against a good to great basketball team compared to a average to below average team, which Sacramento has been struggling against at times so far this season. The other part is, and this is bad news for Sacramento Kings fans, bad news for the Golden One Center, but maybe good news for this Kings team. Sacramento's not going to have home court advantage, at least in the opening series, right? They might have home court advantage in their 1-game or potentially 2-game play-in tournament if they finish as a 7th seed, but we want to avoid that at all costs. The Kings win the 6th seed. Whoever they're taking on right now, I think it would be the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't give a damn. Play the first 2 games in OKC. Play all 4 out of the 7 games in OKC. That might be a good thing for Sacramento at this point. I don't know what it is about this building and the Kings maintaining leads, but they are struggling to do it. It's been a problem on the road as well. But the Kings, whether their home record and win percentage at home is better than on the road, they have played their better basketball, and especially defensively, play better on the road. So it's kind of tongue-in-cheek what I'm saying, but also, in theory, the problems that have plagued this Kings team, their inconsistency against bad teams, shorthanded teams, and at home, won't be maybe as much of an issue in the playoffs. Or maybe that's just wishful thinking at this point. I have no idea. Truth be told, let's be honest about something. Tonight was a near disaster for the Kings. Not just to lose at home to the San Antonio Spurs without Wembanyama. I mean, that's bad enough as it is. But the Phoenix Suns won tonight. No surprise. They beat the Toronto Raptors. The Dallas Mavericks won tonight, beating a Miami Heat team that's beaten the Sacramento Kings twice. The Heat had a lead early, and the Mavericks were able to come back and win that game. And then the Golden State Warriors nearly won. They had like a 13-point lead, and they ended up blowing it late. I think Steph Curry actually got hurt down the stretch of that game, which you never want to see that. But we were very, very close, y'all, to Suns win, Mavericks win, Warriors win, and Kings lose arguably the easiest game of the night on their home floor to San Antonio. I thought I was going to be hosting a podcast talking about all of that. Boy, my blood pressure is thankful that I'm not. All right, let's talk about Domantas Sabonis, right? I'm not waiting to the end of the podcast to talk about him like I did last night when he owned Anthony Davis again. Domantas Sabonis, 31 points, 14 of 19 from the field, 17 rebounds, 9 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. Really tough night for the Domantas Sabonis does not score or cannot score crowd. Is not a reliable scoring option. Now, granted, I understand this is just one game, but this is not the first time this season that Sabonis has had to go into primary scorer mode. Sabonis was aggressive offensively, trying to score the basketball the entire night. And one of the best things that I can say about Domantas Sabonis is he makes the right plays. The right play might be not looking to score and trying to get his teammates involved, which we all know is Sabonis' first instinct. His first instinct is to try and find De'Aaron or Monk or Herter or Keegan or Barnes or whoever he's on the floor with. He's trying to get them the basketball where they love it and where they need it to score. That is what Sabonis does. His second instinct is to try and score himself. I understand for the amount of money that the Kings are paying Domantas Sabonis and for him being a all-NBA caliber center, someone who deserved to be an all-star for back-to-back seasons. I understand some people going, he just is not as reliable the go-to scorer as you would expect from a star or expect from the people, the players of the company that he keeps statistically. So he just it's a shortcoming to his game. And to some extent, people who say that are correct. But Sabonis reads and reacts to how the game is played. And more often than not, even if we might be frustrated at times that he's not looking to score as much as he should, and unfortunately this season it feels like he's missed a lot more bunnies at the rim compared to last season. But Sabonis, more often than not, is going to make the right play and the right read, even at the sacrifice of his own numbers, or at least his own scoring numbers. Tonight, that wasn't the case. Domantas Sabonis, offensively, in so many ways, put the team on his back for the majority of this game. Again, Fox led the Kings in scoring with 33, but 17 of them came in the fourth quarter. Domas was doing the scoring throughout this game tonight. And here we are. Not only did Domantas Sabonis nearly have another triple-double, not only did Domantas Sabonis have his 45th straight double-double, not only did Domantas Sabonis put up a 31, 17, and 9 stat line on a super efficient 14 of 19 shooting from the field. He got the game-winning steal and game-winning dunk with De'Aaron Fox fouled out of the game. Anybody else talking about it? Anyone? Bueller? I look forward to turning on ESPN when I get home tonight or ESPN tomorrow to see that they're not talking about it. I look forward to going through Twitter. Hell, I've already gone through Twitter and looked at some of the big basketball commentators who have no problem talking about or writing about when Sabonis isn't playing well, but when Sabonis has a big game-winning moment like tonight in a 31-point performance, it's freaking crickets. I know I've talked about this before. I'll continue to talk about it until I'm blue in the face because this proves one of two things. One, which really more often than not is the case, they're not watching, which to some extent I understand. Okay, you're not watching Kings and Spurs on a Thursday night. Okay, I probably get that, but you should at the bare minimum be paying attention to what Sabonis did at the end of a close game, especially when NBA is tweeting about it and Sacramento Kings are tweeting about it. You claim to be a national NBA writer with national NBA perspective, but maybe that falls into the second point, that you're just outright ignoring it because, one, it doesn't fit your narrative of who Sabonis is, or two, you just don't want to admit you're wrong about the guy. Regardless, Sabonis, in so many ways, won this game for the Sacramento Kings tonight. But the Kings also won because of, for the second straight game, a huge boost off the bench from Davion Mitchell and Keon Ellis. We'll talk about those two, plus the rough night that Kevin Herter and Keegan Murray had. All still to come here on Locked On Kings. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be right around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is an unbelievable vehicle. It's perfect for city drives and for great escapes. Class exclusive Google is built into your always updating assistant for for anything that you need, whether it's Google Maps, Google Assistant, Google Play Store. It's all built right into your 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system in the vehicle. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Looking for something different? How about the 2024 Nissan Armada? It will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. You can tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Armada, or the Nissan Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. I don't know if it's a short-term solution or something the Kings can rely on long-term, but Mike Brown has figured something out. 3 guard lineups. A combination of Fox, of Monk, of Davion, and of Keon. Not all 4 on the floor at the same time, but a combination, 3 out of the 4 on the floor at the same time. And what I love about this is it's not just Fox, Monk, and pick one of Davion or Keon. It's get both of them in the game at the same time with Monk so Fox can rest. When Monk is resting, get them both out there with Fox. You can do so many different combinations of these 4 guards, and it's working, right? Mike talked about it after the game, and he said he's going this route because a lot of teams are playing small against the Sacramento Kings, which is understandable to some extent, and maybe Mike is going to have to readjust when teams recognize that going small is opening up this opportunity for him to play these 3 guard lineups. Although I don't think at this time teams are too worried about not playing small because of Keon Ellis and Davion Mitchell. But maybe eventually they will be if they continue to play the way that they have been playing. Keon Ellis tonight, 11 points, 4 of 6 from the field, 3 of 5 from three-point range, 2 steals. Davion, 9 points, 4 of 5 shooting from the field. Davion Mitchell has been shooting lights out really since the players-only meeting. I don't know if they said anything to him or if he just has flipped the switch or if he's just feeling it. Whatever he's done, whatever he's changed, if anything, it's working. Or finally, his hard work is paying off. Because offensively, Davion Mitchell is playing so well right now, and I will say it again gladly. Put on the dunce cap on Matt George's head. During the Laker game the other night, I was talking about I would only run a 3-guard lineup of Murray, Fox, and Keon, and have Davion and Kevin Huerter and the rest of them sitting on the bench. Davion has made me eat my freaking words, and I have no problem saying that on my platform or any platform you choose. Prove me wrong, Davion. I love it. I absolutely love it, because if the Kings can get this kind of production offensively from Davion, when we know what he already brings on the defensive end of the floor, the Kings are in such a better position. This is what Monty McNair dreamed Davion could be when they took him in the 2021 draft. Like, how Davion is playing has been excellent. And then Keon Ellis, man. Keon Ellis is just a winning freaking basketball player. It's right in front of us. He has developed from a undrafted player out of Alabama to a year and some change as a two-way player into a full roster player who, in my opinion, should be on the floor as part of the Kings rotation on a nightly basis. He has been that good, that much of a game changer for the Kings. He changed the game again when he came in today, replacing the starters who continued to struggle. Keon Ellis, Davion Mitchell, they've both been excellent. But you don't just have to hear it from me. I asked De'Aaron Fox about both of them. He talks about Davion a little bit, but really lumped a lot of praise on Keon Ellis. Take a listen to what Fox had to say after the game. Fox, you've seen Keon and Davion's full career and their development. Last 2 games, both of them have stepped up in kind of an extended role. Just from your perspective as a point guard, what have you seen from them and how they've grown and what they're doing on both sides?
I think they've been big. One with their ball pressure, that's one thing that I feel like stands out. When Keon steps on the court, good things happen. He's able to just create. I think he's one of those guys that you would call a defensive playmaker. Like, he just makes things happen on the defensive end. And then I think he's a better shooter than people know. Obviously, people haven't seen him. You haven't seen his career. But I think he's a much better shooter than people give him credit for. And obviously, teams haven't seen him as well. So a lot of times they're going under ball screens or DHOs. And we have the confidence in him to shoot the ball. We've seen his shooting numbers in practice. We've seen what he does in practice. So I think when he has that confidence and you go out there and you're playing, real NBA minutes, it starts to grow, and he's going to continue to grow as a player the more people see him on the court.
As much as I want to celebrate how Keon and Davion are playing. As much as I want to celebrate Fox and Sabonis both having 30-point games, Fox and Sabonis combined for 64 of the Kings' 84 points from their starters. And still, they barely beat the San Antonio Spurs at home. If you're getting 30 from both Fox and Sabonis, you should be winning by double digits, right? Assuming you're getting help from the rest of your roster. Now, you gave up 129 points. So offensively, the rest of your roster did enough to make up for some of the struggles of the other King starters offensively. 64 of the 84 points from your starters come from Fox and Sabonis. 17 of the other 20 come from Harrison Barnes. That means you got 0 points from Kevin Huerter and 3 points from Keegan Murray. Defensively, you didn't do enough, obviously. But offensively, I mean, you need more from your starters, period. Let's start with Kevin Huerter. I've been critical of Kevin Huerter recently, talked about him on last night's podcast, and about just where I think he's trending, where he's projecting. This is the third funk that Kevin Huerter has worked his way into. Now, I want to make sure I'm fair, because Kevin had a couple of really big rebounds towards the end of this game, one big offensive rebound during the fourth quarter. He finished with a block. He finished with a steal, a couple of assists. Kevin Huerter wasn't absolutely useless, right? But we know he's a liability on the defensive end of the floor. Teams attack him, and offensively, when he's only giving you 0 points, he's giving you nothing scoring-wise, like, there's really just no justifying him being on the floor. I just think the Kings and Kevin Huerter are just clearly moving in different directions right now, and the future for Sacramento does not include Kevin Huerter as a part of it. Part of me hates to say that because I really, really enjoy Kevin Huerter as a player and as a person. But Kevin's really, really struggling right now. The third time this season he's gone through one of these funks. Now, I've also been very transparent about how I don't think the Kings and Mike Brown specifically have handled Huerter correctly at times this season. I think part of the reason Kevin has struggled and has lacked his confidence and that impact offensively that he had last season is because of Mike Brown and because of what this Kings coaching staff is asking of him. That being said, if this is what coaches who know what it takes to win in the NBA need, and Kevin's not able to keep up, like, this is the season of you kind of separating the boys from the men is not a fair term. That's a very condescending and rude term. So that's not what I mean. But the winning players for how you want to win and how you want to play versus the players that can't keep up, we know what side Kevin Huerter's falling on at this point in time. So another rough night from Kevin Huerter. But we got to talk about Keegan Murray too. And if you've listened to me on the Locked On Kings podcast, even a little bit over the couple seasons that Keegan Murray has been here, you know how much of a Keegan Murray fan I am. Love Keegan Murray to death. Wanted the Kings to draft him more than anybody else in this freaking city. That being said, Keegan was bad tonight. Like, he had one of those Harrison Barnes disappearing act games from earlier on in the season. 3 points, only 3 rebounds. And even on games where Keegan has struggled offensively, he's still given Sacramento a nice boost defensively. He is the guy that gets stuck on the toughest assignment on the opposing team. Tonight, with Victor Wembanyama out, although Keegan would never guard Wemby, it was Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell cooked Keegan tonight. Now, Vassell was feeling it, and he wasn't alone. The Spurs got some great games out of a handful of players tonight, but Vassell was leading the charge. 30 points, 11 of 18 from the field, 9 assists, 5 rebounds. Devin Vassell was feeling it, and a vast majority of that offense and that great game came with Keegan Murray guarding him. Vassell cooked Keegan. Keegan did not have a good night defensively and gave you next to nothing offensively. I've been okay with the, I don't know if underachieving is the right word. Keegan has not developed offensively as much as Kings fans were hoping, and as much as I was hoping coming into this season. We were talking a lot about his ability to develop as a scorer and someone who can score on all 3 levels and create his own shot, right? He has not grown as much in that area as we would have liked to, and as much as we thought he was going to, based off of the one-on-one that he was playing against De'Aaron Fox this offseason. But clearly, that one-on-one against Fox this past summer, plus the work that he's put in this season, he's developed into the best defender on this Kings team as a second-year player. So he deserves a ton of credit for that. But still, offensively, the Kings do need more. And there are going to be games, especially in the postseason, there are going to be games where Keegan has to give Sacramento more offensively than he gave tonight, certainly, and he's been giving at times this season. Now, he doesn't have to go out and put up 47 points on the board like he did earlier this year, but it should not be. It should be a pretty regular occurrence for Keegan to be a 15, 16-plus point per game scorer. And he's just not there yet right now, which is okay, just in his second year. But nights like tonight, you were able to get the victory, but it was pretty clear to me that Keegan was not playing well, and the Kings struggle, obviously, when Keegan does not play well. Thankfully, they were able to get this victory tonight. But where does that put the Sacramento Kings in the standings, in the Western Conference playoff race? I'll update you on that, plus who we should be rooting for in tomorrow's batch of games. That's all coming here in just a second. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Whether you're looking to buy tickets to a Kings game, a sporting event, a concert, a theater production, a comedy show, whatever it may be, Game Time needs to become your go-to ticket purchasing app, because Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchases. You can see your view from your seat, whatever the venue is, from a massive football stadium to a more intimate theater downtown, so you know exactly what your view is going to be when you arrive. They're all in prices, show your total up front, so you're not getting hit with all those hidden fees and things that make you think like you're paying double when you weren't expecting to. And you can also buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Also, Game Time straight up rewards you for buying tickets last minute. Hey, sometimes you don't know if you're going to be able to go or not. Maybe you make a last minute decision of, you know what, I'm going to go to the Kings game on Sunday. Well, you can buy tickets an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours before tip-off and get these last-minute flash deals that can help you get in the door for a fraction of the price. Plus, they have zone deals, which means you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats for big-time savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, promo code LOCKED ON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So where did the Sacramento Kings end up after tonight? Well, because they avoided disaster, but the Suns and Mavs won, they didn't move anywhere, right? They're still in 7th. They're still half a game behind the Phoenix Suns, who are in 6th. Now, the good news is for the Kings that the Suns play the Boston Celtics twice and the Cleveland Cavaliers in their next 3 games. So if the Kings handle their business at home during this homestand, the Suns, being shorthanded, although they did just come off a big win against the Denver Nuggets and won tonight against Toronto, there should be a loss or two, maybe mainly those 2 Boston games. There should be a loss or 2 in that 3-game stretch for the Kings to potentially leapfrog Phoenix and get back into that 6th spot. The Kings also remain a game and a half ahead of the Dallas Mavericks, who are in 8th. It's not a ton of cushion, but it's a decent amount of cushion, especially considering in a couple weeks' time, the Kings and Mavericks are going to play each other in back-to-back games inside of the Golden One Center, and we know how massive those games are going to be. The Dallas Mavericks, though, have a pretty decent schedule stretch. Their next 3 games, the Detroit Pistons, which they absolutely should be winning that game, the Chicago Bulls, who I think most would say the Mavs should win that game, although the Bulls have been doing the Kings favor. Well, they did the Kings favors tonight after beating the Kings earlier this week. And then the Golden State Warriors. I don't know who we want to root for in that game, but I imagine it might be Golden State. Either way, one person's going to make up a little bit of ground and one team's going to fall back a little bit. So that's the next 3 games for the Dallas Mavericks. The good news from tonight is, because the Kings beat the Lakers last night, because the Warriors lost tonight, the Warriors and the Lakers are now tied 3 games back of Sacramento in the 9th and 10th spots. So at this point in time, it's not mathematically impossible, but I feel pretty confident saying, and of course, knock on wood around me, and I'm not trying to jinx it, and don't blame me, it's not my fault. I'm just telling you, I feel confident in the fact that the Kings are going to be a top 8 team. I think if the Kings make the play-in, they will have a chance to win in that opening round and just get in that 7th seed. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope that they are a top 6 team and they can avoid the play-in outright. That has always been the goal. That has always been my expectation. But I don't think the Kings are going to fall to 9th or 10th. Again, it's certainly mathematically possible. I'm not trying to jinx it. I'm just telling you that my confidence level with this Kings team at this point in time. Also, the Kings are only 1 game back of 5th, which of course is held by the New Orleans Pelicans. So go Philadelphia 76ers tomorrow, because the Sixers are hosting New Orleans. If the Sixers win, then the Kings move to both the Kings and Suns move half a game closer to New Orleans, which puts both teams in a really, really good position to leapfrog them and maybe snatch that 5th spot. It's still a very, very good possibility that the Kings can end up in 5th. Now, the Kings do have a meeting with the Pelicans. Yes, they've played them 4 times, lost to them 4 times, and still have one more game against them. Thank you, in-season tournament. That's coming up later this season. That might end up being a pretty massive game, and probably a game Kings fans should be concerned about based off of how the Pelicans have manhandled the Kings so far this season. But 5th is still very much on the table. It's not like it's 6th they're playing for Sacramento. 5th is right there. So go 76ers, and also go Milwaukee Bucks, who are taking on the Los Angeles Lakers in LA. The Bucks let the Kings down a little bit, losing by like 30-something to the Warriors at home the other night. So Bucks, make it up for the Kings and beat the Los Angeles Lakers and move them a little bit further down. Do us that favor, Milwaukee. And then, of course, the Kings will play during this homestand next week. The Kings play the Bucks and the Lakers on back-to-back nights here in Sacramento. Yikes. That might be a tough 2-game or doubleheader. But the Kings are at home. Honestly, maybe we should feel better about those 2 games because they're against better teams than teams like San Antonio. Coming up on Sunday, they have a matinee game against the Houston Rockets, who are another one of those teams very similar to the Bulls that the Kings should be beating at home. That being said, last time the Kings faced the Rockets, it was those back-to-back games in Houston where the Kings got their butts kicked. Like, bad. Now, De'Aaron wasn't playing in those games, but it was bad, right? We remember how those games went. So hopefully the Kings can right that wrong and win on this matinee Sunday and move themselves up the standings even further. I'll be at that game. If you're coming to that game, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter at MattGeorgeSack. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Love to meet up with you before the game or halftime or whenever to be able to chat with you and say hi. So reach out to me. You can do that. Comment section on YouTube. I'm sure you're already getting loose talking about this game. Can't wait to read and respond to you in the comment section. Appreciate your support as always. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you again, basketball gods.